Okay. It looks like we are live. Yes. Okay, excellent. Perfect. How is everyone today? Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jason Levine, and welcome to the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel, and something I've been calling Fun Audio Fridays. Loud and clear. Thank you, Evil Cerise. Great to see you as always. So this is actually, today's stream is going to be a repeat of something I did yesterday on the Premiere Pro Facebook page. I had a lot of people pinging me on Twitter and actually on Facebook who aren't regular Facebook users, saying that the experience of rewatching the replays on there, if you're not signed in, is kind of a drag. Would I consider publishing it to YouTube? Well, we didn't archive the video to publish to YouTube, so I just thought, why not just do it again? And I can probably tighten up a few things, as well as kind of pre-announce the things that I'm going to be talking about. So if you're interested, I think you'll really dig some of these features that you can do in Audition. What's up, Trevor? What's up, Aman? And hopefully, start leveraging these in your workflow. Hey, Graham DSLR, nice to see you. So as always, we've got our live interactive chat here. Now I've got a bunch of things I'm going to go through, and as always, I am nothing if not detailed. So this isn't going to be 5 minutes, but a lot of cool things to do. Some of these features you might already know. I can guarantee there's at least 2 things I will show today that most of you probably haven't seen, unless you caught it yesterday. What's up, Duster? Sujit? Zangief, nice to see you. Nyorai, hey, great to see you. All right, so why don't we go ahead and let's get started here. Just going to switch my screens and get over to Premiere, and let's start talking about workflows. So what are we going to actually talk about today? Well, the 5 workflows are as follows. So the first thing we're going to talk about are some of the direct integration capabilities you have with Premiere and Audition in the form of Edit Original, also known as Edit in Audition. And this is at the clip level, the individual clip level that you can send to Audition, do a tweak, make a change, save, and switch back to Premiere, and it updates inside the timeline. This is just like Edit Original and every other Adobe app. But then you also have Edit Sequence in Audition, which allows you to package up and take all of your sequence information, everything that's in your timeline, and send that over to Audition to either perform sort of your finalized audio mix or some of the other features that I'll show you a little bit later. Then we're going to show the second thing I'll talk about today is something called automatic speech alignment. And this is one of those features that most people have probably never used or didn't even know that we had. Specifically, this is designed for ADR, where you have a scene that you've captured and perhaps the original dialogue is noisy or just not loud enough or whatever, and you need to go back in the studio and replace the dialogue, ADR. So automatic speech alignment can be used for that specific process, allowing you to record something against the video with timecode, but then it'll automatically stretch and basically realign your overdubbed audio against the original reference so that you don't have to do that manually. All right, super cool feature. Really one of those kind of wonder things that we have in Audition. Third thing we're going to talk about is Adobe Audition Remix. I've shown this many times on stream. This is effectively a way for you to take any audio track, music track, and dynamically recompose it to any length without stretching. So it'll maintain pitch, it'll maintain tempo, but it'll basically re-edit the sections for you to create a very smooth, seamless edit of the music. Fourth thing will be a combination of something called match volume and loudness matching. Now we have loudness auto matching in the Essential Sound panel, and I'll dip a little bit into that too, but you have way more flexibility and way more features available to you and lots of different ways that you can not only match to a broadcast safe audio level, but also if you have a reference file and you want to make all of your audio files that loudness, you can do that in Audition too. And then the last thing I'll show you here is based around sort of global batch processing using multiple effects or processes, also known as favorites. So if you've ever created macros or anything like that in Photoshop where you do multiple operations at once with a single keystroke, You can do the same thing in Audition to your audio files coming from your Premiere Pro sequence and do it very, very efficiently, very quickly, and then again have that audio reflected immediately back in Premiere. So lots of cool things to cover. Hope you enjoy it. What's up, Yuri? Nice to see you. Okay, sweet. All right, and again, I'll be periodically looking over here, so, and if I don't catch them, Evil Cerise will try and answer them. Putting you on the spot there, Tim. Okay. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is edit in Audition, i.e. edit original. So this is some content that I've shown many times. My good friend Fuzzy Island here. This is from a series of interviews that we shot. And, you know, you might have a situation where you have an audio file that you just need to destructively process, right? While you can do a lot of things non-destructive, you can obviously edit, you can add effects and things in Premiere. There's just more that you can do in Audition, different ways to analyze your audio. And sometimes I'm a big believer in committing to changes. Now, regardless, even if you make destructive changes, you're only always working on a copy. You always have access to the original audio in any case anyway. So it's never fully destructive. It's just the idea that you process something, save and commit to the change, go back to Premiere, and it updates in the timeline. So let's just take a quick listen. This is the beginning of the interview here, and we'll just kind of hear what's going on, and then we'll send this file over to Audition. So take a quick listen to this.
My name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. So again, maybe there's some challenging noise on there that the real-time noise reduction wasn't tackling for us. Or maybe there was, you know, some digital clicks or pops that we weren't able to eliminate here. Premiere doesn't have the automatic functions to do these kind of diagnostic repairs. So we want to send that file to Audition in context, fix it, repair it, process it, tweak it, and then automatically go right back to the timeline where it'll be in sync with our changes applied. So to do that, I'm going to select this blue audio track here. You can see this is my secondary audio captured via the iPhone. Right-click or control-click, and I'll choose Edit Clip in Adobe Audition. Now, again, as I mentioned, this is also Edit Original. The reason why you see both of these is that Edit Original works off of the basis of, you know, what is that file type assigned to in terms of launching by default. So, you know, whether you're on Mac or Windows, via your, file properties panel, you'll see, okay, PSDs are associated with Photoshop, obviously. You double click on one, it'll automatically launch Photoshop. AI files automatically associated with Illustrator. But WAV files, MP3 files, AIF files, by default, all of those, if you don't have stuff installed, will generally default to a media player, whether it's Windows Media Player or iTunes or whatever. So unless you manually change that Waves or whatever will launch Audition, Edit Original might launch something else. So in this case, we're going to use Edit Clip, but it's the exact same function, the same feature. So when I do that, what you will see very quickly there is that it did a render and replace. So as I mentioned, it's not destroying the original version of this file. And you can see that because when it's brought into Audition, it actually shows up as extracted. So again, it has a different file name, a unique extension, postfix, if you will, to the end of the file name to let you know that this is an additional version of that. Okay? So here we are inside of the file now. And again, we can do anything that we want here. So let's just to show you an obvious change. So maybe we'll just apply some effects. Maybe first I'll even adjust the amplitude. Now again, we could do this on the Premiere side as well, but this is just to show you that I'm making like a destructive change. So maybe I'll adjust amplitude a little bit, maybe about 5 dB. I also notice that there's a bit of noise in here spectrally. So just real quickly, I'm going to come in and make a selection. I'm going to put my headphones on for this so I can hear what I'm doing. Let's take a quick listen. All right, now you may not be able to hear this quite as crystal clear as I, but I'm just going to quickly capture a noise print. Not worried about making this perfect for right now, just trying to make some, again, obvious destructive changes. But these are the kind of things you're likely to do if you're sending a file directly over to Audition. Let's take a quick listen here with these settings.
I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose. Yeah. Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old
Okay.
storyteller, guitar player, singer, songwriter, I suppose. Yeah. Name's Fuzzy Island, and
All right. So you can see I just took out all that noise right there. And then maybe in this section,
play music, I write stories, tell stories, tell stories.
maybe I want tell stories to have some kind of delay, just because. All right.
Tell stories. Tell stories.
Okay, just because. All right. You can see what that looks like.
Stories. Tell stories.
All right. So again, we've made a destructive change. So now that we're happy with this, I go and say File, Save. And now when I click back to Premiere, if you pay attention, look to where that audio file was in the timeline. You'll see it flash, and it will now update with the change that we just made. So let's click over to Premiere. Here we go. It just changed down below if you saw that real quickly. All right. Also, you'll notice that it changed the color, the label color, because this is technically a new file. Therefore, it will use the label color for the default file type, which in this case is that color green. But now when I play this back,
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old...
okay, real simple. Now, because we have this edit original relationship set up at this point, remember the file is still open in Audition, file still living here in the timeline, perfectly in sync. If I go back to Audition and I undo the delay, and I undo the noise reduction, and I undo the amplify, basically bringing it back to its native state again, and I simply go back and save it now, same thing. So I can undo all of those changes. They were destructive, right? We processed the file, but I decided, I don't like that. Now when I click back to Premiere, again, it updates once again. You saw that little flash in the timeline. And if we just wind back to his telling stories, you won't hear that delay anymore.
Play music, I write stories, tell stories.
Okay? So, edit original. It's a way to send an individual clip over to Audition, process, tweak, do whatever, send it back, and then you have this connected scenario where if you've got now, if I closed it in Audition, I could simply send it back there again if I wanted to. If you leave it open, you're going to have this ability to go back and forth very, very easily. All right? Suraj, how are you? Pain Tab, hello. Victoria, thank you very much. Tanvir. Yes, you can find it actually if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Jason Levine video in the About section. You'll see my contact email there, so you can ping me right there. Okay, so that's edit in Audition. Now let's talk about sort of the next step of that, and I'm going to go ahead while I'm at it, and let's just close this file here. And let's instead now send the entire sequence. So once again, I'm going to go up to the Edit menu, Edit in Adobe Audition, but instead of choosing Clip this time, I'm going to choose Sequence. And when I do that, now I have even more options available to me. So the first thing is we're going to give it a name. So we'll call this Fuzzy Cell Audio Replace YT, okay? It's going to save it into this interchange folder. We want to send the work area. Now let's just do the entire sequence. We're going to send the video through dynamic link. So this is essential because, again, this is a non-render workflow, meaning that this will instantly send anything that's in our timeline that's video over to Audition. It'll appear as a composited singular video file. The difference is that because it's using the same media core engine for playback, regardless if it's, Red content, Airy content, DSLR content, GoPro content, iPhone content, Android content, whatever it is, whatever exists in Premiere that plays in Audition. And it's just streaming it there live via dynamic link very quickly too. You even have the same fractional playback resolution capabilities. So this is wonderful. You do still have the option to export a preview video, but honestly, there's no reason to do that. If you're getting real-time playback in Premiere, you'll get it in Audition. no reason to render a preview. Audio handles. And then probably one of the cooler things that we did here is we allow you to transfer any existing clip or track effects to the audio that you send over in the sequence. So if you've already done some mixing in Premiere, you just want to do more in Audition or tweak it a bit more or do something else, you still have the ability to do that. This also includes non-destructive volume and pan info. So just to show that to you just real quickly, I'm going to come down here. I'm simply going to set a little volume ramp. Okay, so you see what I did here? I just drew a little keyframe just to ramp up the music there. Here, actually, I'll wind this back a little bit. Something like that. Okay, just making just one ramp, just to show you that that's coming over non-destructively. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'll set a little keyframe like this and ramp it down like that. Okay, so let's go edit in Adobe Audition, sequence. I got to do the name again. So we'll just call this selects YT. We want the entire sequence, dynamic link, 1 second, transfer, pan and volume, open in Audition, okay. And it does its thing, all right? All right, Ant, what's up, dude? Audition still scares me at times. Fortunately, I haven't had too much to correct it. Oh, hey, man, you're not alone, and I hear you. And audio is... and it's funny, that is kind of a theme. Like even most video editors and photographers that I know, audio does somehow seem daunting. It's funny, maybe because I originally, although theoretically in my work history, I technically started doing video editing before I was doing audio engineering. But let's just say I've been doing audio a bit longer. For me, it was almost it wasn't video edit. Like animation, After Effects has always been like, before I kind of really got into it. But I imagine it's that same kind of thing. It's just a little daunting, and there's so many options. And actually, one of my good friends and someone who is truly one of the original goddesses of After Effects, Angie Taylor, whom many of you may know, she used to say, and still does, that Audition is sort of the After Effects of audio, because there's so many ways to tweak and manipulate and modify, and there's so many parameters and functions that you can perform on audio, much like in an animation context or a MoGraph context. I get it. Like it makes sense. So hey, but that's why we're doing these things. So, and if you ever have any cues, man, you can always reach out. Love to help in any way that I can. Tanvir, you're very, very kind. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Byron, no, so not on Behance. This one is just solely on YouTube today. The Behance ones are at those different schedule times, but I'll see your questions right here. Okay, so now we've sent over the entire sequence to Audition, and you'll notice that one of the other cool things that it does, take note, you see like the color scheme that I've got here with sort of purple waves, and then again, this green file, that was the new audio file, all the blue ones, and then the tan here. It sends everything over. So as everything appeared here in Premiere, right? So this goes the pinkish, blue, tan, and the track names. All of that stuff now carries over directly into Audition, including, as mentioned, the non-destructive. Oh, it's easier to see without it selected. The non-destructive fades that I just did, right? All of which are editable. And again, if I click right in here now, I can modify that same keyframe. I can eliminate those keyframes altogether, just delete it, all right? Delete that. You also have these fade handles in Audition too, which are just very pretty and let you really adjust the curve ever so nicely, okay? So that's edit the entire sequence in Audition. And the video panel's down here. Sorry, let me bounce that back up here. So the cool thing about this is that, again, this allows you to just work in just a larger sort of audio-specific environment. First and foremost, like the mixer. I like Premiere's mixer. This one, though, functions and is also laid out exactly like a traditional mixing console, where you have your input and output stages at the top. The signal flow goes from top to bottom. You have your phase, your polarity invert up at the top, your effects inserts, 16 effects sends, onboard 5-band parametric EQ with high and low shelving and high pass and low pass filtering, pan, automation, just like in Premiere, right? Fader, and then, track name, all right? Real simple, real easy. Now, this next feature actually speaks to using and leveraging this concept of edit sequence in, because we're going to perform some ADR, some dialogue replacement, using this really awesome feature in Audition called automatic speech alignment. And again, the idea here, if I use this as an example, is that we did this interview with Fuzzy, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to revoice his interview in my voice. Traditionally, we would revoice it in his voice, of course, but for the sake of having a cool thing to show off to you, I recorded myself yesterday morning. First of all, I just kind of transcribed what he said, and then using this very mic right here, I just recorded it watching timecode as you would do ADR, which stands for automatic dialogue replacement, right? So this is the kind of thing that we do in the studio all the time. The examples that I often give, if you're on location and you've got boom mics, or you're outside and you've got booms or lavs and it's too windy, and you capture sound for reference, but it's not going to make it to the final cut. You go back into the studio, you overdub it, and then you do careful sound mixing, and you can watch many of my tutorials there, to kind of put that voice back in the environment so that it doesn't even sound like it was overdubbed. So much of the stuff that you see on Netflix, on Hulu, anywhere that's pro is oftentimes replaced, particularly if you're like in a bar scene or something like that. A lot of that dialogue, even though on set it's very quiet, you still have the noise of cameras and fans and just, movement. It's sometimes easier just to replace. So, first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a new track, and I'm going to import the audio file that I recorded yesterday. So let me just come over to here. We're going to do a file open. I've got it on the desktop, and it's called ADR01. And again, I just took the audio. Let me rephrase that. I just simply watched Fuzzy here and revoiced what he said. Now, let me just go label this ADR so we know where we are. Let me play this back for you together so you can hear that right away. I mean, again, I'm trying to be on time. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. It just doesn't always happen. So take a quick listen. This is me revoicing Fuzzy, watching timecode. I made little timecode notes for myself so I knew where to pick up what he was saying. And just take a listen to what this sounds like in its native state. Here we go.
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write music, write stories, tell stories.
I guess
I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you can see these clips, if I just, I started it right at the beginning, they're visually aligned, and I tried to be, really on time, but you can just see in the waveform, I'm a little off here and there. Now, what you would typically do is you'd revoice this, and anyone who, again, knows me and how I work, one take here. It was done very quickly yesterday before the stream. But the idea is that, I would probably go back and revoice this several times to get the timing right. This is a method that can do that work for you in the case that maybe you don't have the time to go back and do it again, or maybe you just like the performance, but there were a couple sections that were not quite in sync, all right? So check this out. So we're going to select both of these clips. I'm going to come up to the clip menu, and I'm going to choose automatic speech alignment, all right? When you do that, it's going to pull up this little panel here. What's up, 299 Films from Cuba? Nice to see you, all right? So, very simple implementation here. First thing is your reference clip. So this is the clip that you're overdubbing against, that you're doing your dialogue replacement against. This is the one that it's referencing in terms of how it needs to realign the sync. So in this case, it's that 2878 extracted audio file, okay? Now that just happened to have been recorded coming off the iPhone in dual channel mono, i.e. a stereo file. It's the same program content in left and right. So it asks you for a reference channel. The reason for that is, again, in the case of like boom, lav, the boom might be really noisy, right? If you're outside or whatever. The lav might be quieter, or maybe the lav is very distorted, but the boom is clean. This is why it lets you choose which reference channel you're synchronizing against. You then have the unaligned file, which is this one here, ADR01. It's mono, so we don't get to choose a reference channel. And then you have a couple settings here for alignment. Now the default is this middle one here, balanced alignment and stretching. And I want to just call something out here, because what this will actually do is it's not merely editing the file to kind of slide things together, but it's also, when necessary, applying our stretching algorithm to elongate or shorten your speech, your overdubbed voice, to fit the duration of the reference audio. Yeah, science. So some super cool machine learning tech here, powered by Adobe Sensei. Actually, I'm not exactly sure if this feature is completely powered by Adobe Sensei, but it might as well be. So it's doing some actual stretching where it needs it. And then you have a tighter alignment, which means kind of less stretching, a little more on the editing side, and then smoothest stretching, which is going to really dial in and lock down where those attack transients are and make everything kind of fit to fill very accurately. So let's start with the default. Now, as I mentioned, we have a function here, reference clip is noisy. And the cool thing, and the reason why that's there, is specifically if you record like on location outside with a boom or whatever, and the audio, the reference audio is there, so the dialogue artist can hear it and replace their own voice, but it was too noisy to be broadcast. So this accounts for that, and then again is intelligent enough to figure out what is speech and what is noise, and to ignore the noise so that it doesn't throw off the sync. And then you just have the option here to add the new aligned clip to a new track, which we're going to do. So I'll click OK on this. It literally happens that quickly. It's already done. Okay. And you'll see now that we have this new file, ADR aligned, and here's our original. So let me mute the original file. And now let's go ahead and just play back Fuzzy and me together and let you listen to how these are aligned with the default settings. Here we go.
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose.
All right. Now, if you're going, okay, that sounded pretty good, but was the original that bad? Here's the original.
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories.
I guess I'm just an old... I'm right. It's all over the place. It almost sounds like there's a slapback echo. And again, here's our new version using default settings.
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories.
All right. And this is where it gets kind of creepy. Now, again, as I just described, if you were doing this for real, right, and in the studio, you would be most likely on, again, depending upon what the situation is, perhaps you'd use the same type of mic or something a bit more perhaps dynamic versus condenser. This is obviously done, again, it was done with the iPhone, but this condenser is a little too clean, a little too full-bodied to replicate that sound exactly. You would then go in and EQ, and you'd add back in some environment, some room tone, recreate the ambience with a reverb or something. This has not been processed. This is just raw. So it's going to sound weird because it's very, very dry. But again, the sync is spot on, right? And I'll even put the music back in here so we can kind of hear it all together. Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose. Okay. All right. So, again, automatic speech alignment. It's as simple as taking two clips, selecting them, setting your reference, setting your unaligned, and then choosing your particular alignment version. Now, having done that, let me just grab the original. We'll place this back up here again. Let's do one more pass at this, and let's use that smoothest alignment feature. And that one, I think, gets it even a little bit tighter. Let's just try it. We'll give it a shot, all right? Real quickly, all right?
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories.
All I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter, I suppose. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Hi. Look, I even love how it got that. Yeah. Yeah. If you're watching his mouth, I mean, it's pretty shocking. I actually think the default version is even actually, it's a little bit better sounding, and in some ways maybe a little tighter. But that's why you have multiple variations there that you can try. Not surprisingly, the defaults usually do a very good job of making this sound really good and in time. So automatic speech alignment, super cool. Again, saves you an enormous amount of time. No manual editing. You can still come in here, and if you feel like, okay, you're looking at the waves here and you're going, all right, these aren't quite, yeah, I can probably get these a little bit tighter, a little bit closer together, although they sure do look pretty darn close, right? As you look at the attacks here, maybe I could slide this one in a couple of samples to the right. You could still do that, but the point is this is doing it for you very, very quickly. And is it always going to work as brilliantly? I can't get, maybe. Try it. This was one take, one try, one pass, and it kind of just knocked it out of the park, so to speak. So really super cool, and again, a feature that most people are not aware of. All right, let me go ahead and delete these tracks. Let's get rid of this. We don't need any of those now. And we're going to talk about the next feature, which is, ooh, yikes, ow, got my hair caught in there, which is Adobe Audition Remix. All right. Hold on, I'm just going to bounce over to the chat real fast. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention last week when we were here. So I was later today. I've got to lay down some. I have to record some background music, and I don't have the camera set up exactly how I want yet. I have some new cameras that I'll be installing here, and so that you can see the room. This part of the room is kind of weird because this one side it's sound treated from the other side, from behind the window coverings and things. But just to let you see real quickly, the rig there, which is pretty neat. So you've got up at the top there on the left, you've got two different Akai samplers, S1000. You got an S950 with that blinking red light below that. You've got some tube preamps, a couple of synths in there, Yamaha EX5, Kurzweil K2600, that rack that is not illuminated at the bottom down there. You can't really see it. There's a whole bunch of DBX compressors, analog preamps and compressors over there. Then on the other side, you can't even see the laptop. But yeah, so they got a laptop running Native Instruments Contact, as well as a TX81Z. I don't know if you can see that at all. It's at the top of the rack. Then you've got some additional Kai samplers, the S612s, classic 12-bit samplers, followed by a classic Tascam DAT machine, something called a CS5 made by Ditronics, which is a stereo chorus processor, and then a Tascam D88 for when I'm really going old school. So just a quick look at some old school gear there. All right, let's get back into it and talk about Remix. All right, hold on, let me go back over to the chat here. All right. Thanks, Kyler. Yeah, the YouTube ones are definitely a bit more like that indeed. All right, let's see. Okay, Aman, you've got some spitting some lyrics here in the chat. Very nice. All right. What's up, Desiree? Nice to see you. Janes, aka JPZ, thank you. Yeah, it's so cool. Again, it's not. I can't guarantee that it's always going to work as brilliantly. You really just have to try it. But there's no fooling. Recorded that yesterday. Just tried to do it, and it worked nicely. Okay. I don't happen to have a spare contact license. No, I'm sorry. All right. Yes. AS Images. Oh, yeah. Power in the desert, no less. Believe me, I don't turn this stuff on. I don't leave it running all day. It's too much. Those old school samplers, they've all got old school hard drives, and they're very big and very loud and very hot. So, yeah, that was really that'll just be on for today. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about Adobe Audition Remix. So again, the idea behind Remix is that it allows you to dynamically recompose your music track without stretching, without changing pitch, without altering tempo, simply by clicking and dragging or adjusting a time manually. But the way that you get into this is by leveraging the Essential Sound panel. So I'm going to come up to my workspaces here just real briefly and switch over to Essential Video Mixing. I might need to do a little tweak in my UI, although no, that looks good. Okay, cool. So we're in our Essential Video Mixing panel here, which brings up Essential Sound. I'm just going to expand this a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite as wide there. And the way that this works is you need to first tell Essential Sound what type of audio file you're working with. And to access Remix, that's the music audio type. So I'm going to select our Anytime file here and denote this as music. But before I do that, here's a little best practice for you. So when you're doing a remix, when it's doing a dynamic recomposition, it's going to take into account everything that's in that audio file. So in the case of this, by the way, so this song, it's called Anytime. This is actually a latest recording of mine that I did on a collaboration EP with Fuzzy Island, available now on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon, and wherever music is streamed or sold. There's a lot of talking before and after the songs. I love leaving the kind of in-studio chatter just to kind of give you that real experience of being there when we tracked these things. So by having that talking and stuff on the end of the file here, that might screw up our remix because that isn't actually the end of the song. That has nothing to do with it. So it's going to factor that in and try and preserve that. I don't really want that. So the first thing I'm just going to do, and this stands to reason that if you've got files where, again, there's like a count in or there's something that you don't want to, again, it's very easy to cut out or edit out, cut it out or edit it out ahead of time before you remix, all right? So you'll hear what I'm saying. You'll hear what I'm talking about here. So here's the end of the song. It's going to be a little loud because this is a mastered track.
Well, you like that one better than
I like that one better, yeah.
Let's see how it sounds.
Okay.
You never know until you hear it back. It's really...
Okay, so you can see it. There's all this talking, right? So in the song, the audio really ends right here.
Well,
all right. So I'm simply going to cut this out first. Again, this is just a recommended best practice, just so that, because that talking shouldn't be factored into the remix at all. I just want the body of the music, all right? So there we go. Okay, so now that we have that selected and edited, I'm going to come over here, shrink this back in. I'm going to select this and choose music as the audio type. And when I do that, now you've got a couple of different options here inside of Essential Sound. You've got loudness auto matching, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Ducking, auto ducking, which we just added to Premiere Pro to automatically duck the music against dialogue. But the one that we want to focus on here is duration. And this is where you're going to find Remix. Now you'll see that it also has stretch, okay? Now, by using stretch, it will allow you to fit that music to whatever duration we want, which, by the way, if we take a look over here, I actually want this interview to end right after this comment here.
I thank God for technology and music, with the exception of auto-tune, of course. But
okay, so I actually want it to end right there. So if I were to stretch this, okay, if I were to enable stretch, you'll notice that I can hover my mouse over the upper right-hand corner here, and I get this little clock icon, and it tells me stretch. So if I shrink this down with stretch enabled, it will do just that. And it will preserve the pitch of the music. But because it's using a stretching algorithm, if I take something that's almost 4 minutes in length and make it 2 minutes, what does it have to do? It has to speed it up. So instead of having this slow grooving kind of blues thing, now it's going to be I mean, we're basically doing a 50% duration, so it's going to be twice as fast, right? So if I were to do that right now, shrink this up to around there, and wind this back and play it.
And also, if there's something I can't quite figure out, I can look at other folks who are playing it and see if I want to play it the way they do or if I want to make it a little different. So.
Okay, that's not what we want, all right? I want everything to be the same tempo, which is this.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want it to re-edit it to fit that particular duration, which in this case is approximately 2 minutes, 10 seconds, and 16 frames. Okay, so instead I'm going to choose Remix. And when I choose Remix, what this now does is this will quickly analyze the audio clip. And it's looking for transients. It's analyzing the beat structure. It's analyzing the harmonic structure, trying to figure out the best places where it can actually edit this file for us. Okay? And then I can do one of two things. I can either type in a target length right here, right? So I can click in there and type in a new target length. I can also just use, you'll notice you have this sideways arrow, scrubbable text. I can scrub it to the duration, or I think even easier, if you come down to the graphic, notice now you've got this squiggly line, and if I hover over the squiggly line, now it says Remix, okay? So I can take the Remix handle and just drag it like that, let go, and what you now see that little wiggly line right there? Yeah, that's an edit. So it has now recomposed the song, edited out 2 minutes worth, and re-edited some sections together to bring it together without changing pitch, without changing tempo. And here's what that edit sounds like. Inspiration is a feeling.
Yeah, a phrase will start kicking around, and it might all come out in half an hour, and might all come out in 10 years.
Okay, I'm going to solo this so you can hear what that sounds like, because this is actually, and this is, again, sometimes it amazes even me. It edited after a piece of vocal into a solo, and it's totally seamless. Take a listen. Okay, now you've got lots of different options here. So you'll see that it has this button here, favor shorter segments. So if you do that, you'll see that it'll actually create smaller edits across your file. So like here's one down here. I mean, what? That's an edit point right there. It edited from the beginning of one verse and then picked up, you can actually see the times. So it edited at 42 seconds and 14 frames, and then it edited against 1 minute, 14 seconds and 1 frame. Listen. I mean, as an audio editor, I'm going, wow, that saved me a lot of time. Yeah, I'm very comfortable making those edits myself, but I don't have to now, all right? And if you go into the Properties panel, which you may not see by default, in the Properties panel with your file selected, you'll see that you have a section in here called Remix. Again, you can adjust your target duration here. You can also just disable Remix. But now you have more settings. You have advanced settings. So one of the things is, because we have this favor shorter segments, you can see that you can adjust the edit length. So I want, longer edits, shorter edits. As you drag this slider, it will again continue to edit this in different places. I mean, again, that edited between a different part of the solo. I don't even quite understand how it even did it so well. Here's the crazy thing. This doesn't even have any drums on it. There is no beat. I mean, there's a beat, but there's no performed nothing. So it's using my bass thump, which of course is incredibly rhythmic, as the reference, right? And doing that. Here, let's see if we can check out this other edit here. It did it again. So you can see it went from 1 minute, 20 seconds, 21 frames at the end of one chorus and re-edited against 2 minutes, 23 seconds, and 10 frames for the last chorus. and it cut out a whole minute with a perfectly seamless. These edits are even better than the ones that I showed yesterday, right? This is machine learning. This is Adobe Sensei's magic at work here. And again, if you're working with beat-based music, you'll notice that it has things like minimum loop, right? Meaning that I don't want it to do an edit that's any shorter than 8 beats. So, if you've got some kind of soundtrack or whatever, just something with a pronounced beat, and you want to maintain like a cycle, right? So you always want 16 bars before an edit happens. You can make that 16, or you can make it 24, or whatever. And then maximum slack, because we're not playing with tempo, we're not messing about, we're not stretching anything. The slack is the maximum amount that you're allowing it to have at the end after you kind of configure it to a specific length, right? So if you say make it a minute, it could have as many as 5 seconds extra to keep everything, sounding proper, sounding musical, right? Now, if you want it to be exact, and by the way, it can still be very exact. I mean, I have the 5-second slack here. You can see if you just look, and here. So we're at 2 minutes, 5 seconds, 4 frames. All right. The fade out, it is. It's exactly 5 here. So that's a fade. And to be honest, it's not going to end like that unless that were like an explosion or something. So you can readjust that as well. And this is where perhaps you cut off a little bit at the beginning. You've got other options. Now, if you choose stretch to exact duration, this will now, instead of remixing, this will use the stretching algorithm, right? So it's using dynamic time stretching. You just may incur some artifacting there, all right? I don't recommend that. Again, it's going to maintain everything else, but it's using that stretching algorithm. I'd re-edit the music before I used that. Personal opinion. All right. It might work for you on the type of music you're doing, and it may sound great. I like to avoid stretching if I don't have to, right? Because it can make certain things sound weird, particularly in the high end. We've got a lot of acoustic slides on the neck of the guitar, a lot of bright, high-end clarity. Stretching doesn't like that kind of stuff. So I'll go with this. In any case, that's Adobe Audition Remix. This will work on any audio file, commercial music, your own music, anything. MP3s, waves, AIFs, standard, broadcast, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Anything that you bring in, you can use this to remix, all right? Yeah, no way for it to cheat, exactly. Totally. My name is Mock. Yes, it's crazy. Adobe Cadabra, as Evil Cerise says. Yeah, something is happening. You guys are hilarious. Am I going to be at DMLA this June, Zangief? I wish I were. Unfortunately, no, my friend. But I'll be thinking of you while you're there. AS Images, too effing cool. Yeah. Again, it's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always the same. I just told you, even yesterday, these edits were amazing. Yesterday, there were a couple that were a little weird. And here's the thing. While it will perform good, clean, pop-free edits, especially with a song like this where there's no pronounced beat, there's no drums, it doesn't mean that it knows chorus 3 is the best one, right? The third chorus is the best. So it might cut out a minute and that has your favorite chorus. It doesn't know not to do that. Or it might cut a verse, maybe your verse is, again, 24 beats, but don't make an edit that's anything less than 16, so it might cut it at 20, right? It's still in time, technically, 4 beats to the bar, but it doesn't know musically that that's not what you want. So you might need to, again, retweak those sliders, reconfigure, or, and this is where it gets even cooler, and this is where the engineers have just thought of all this stuff. If you right-click, control-click on the clip, because say now you've got all these edits, and you're like, oh, you know what? I'd like to do the recomposition myself. I want the chorus first, then the verse, then the chorus, then the ending, then the beginning, but I want to use those same edits because they seem to work. You can go into the remix menu, and what you'll see here is that you have an option to split the remixed clip into segments. And when you do that, What this now does is it actually gives you the individually edited sections so that you can move things around or retweak the crossfades however you like. Now, when you do that, it comes in as a grouped clip. So you'll go to the groups menu and you'll just say suspend groups. And now, it's all selected there. Now you can just separate those sections apart, right? Or as I said before, if you come in here and you want to readjust the fade curve, right? So you can see it has this, particular, it's not linear, it's slightly sinusoidal, but you can readjust the curve however you like, or make it a longer fade if that's what you want. You've got all of that flexibility, all of that control. All right. So this is, again, such a cool feature. It can save you an enormous amount of time. And like I said, it's not always going to do everything brilliantly, perfectly. But without a doubt, it will, for certain, if you're just not comfortable editing audio, if you're, you do it and it's never quite on the beat, or you cut the beat off or whatever, this does that for you without those issues, right? It knows how to edit against a beat. It understands harmonic structure, beat structure, and again, you even see you have this slider here for features. Feature more on the timbre, more on the harmonic side. It's really cool. All right, so that's Adobe Audition Remix. Okay, for our last 10 minutes here, two more things I want to show you. The first one we're going to talk about here is match volume and loudness processing. Just going to bounce back over here real quickly. Morgan Korn, it's basically content-aware fill for audio. How does that work for extending the duration of a clip? Does it repeat parts of it? Yeah, exactly. So again, and here, let's see, if I just let's undo that, all right? So let's say the original was, 4 minutes. So let's say I want to make this, 6 minutes. That's exactly what it will do. So once again, it looks at the audio. Sorry, did I have that? Sorry, I don't want that here. It'll look at the audio, and it will say, okay, yeah, which sections can I repeat? Can I re-edit? And it'll do just that. So here, if I just type this in here, let's type in 6. Okay, boom, there it is. And what you'll see, again, if I click away, you can see now that it extended different sections. And if we take a listen to what it did here, it's got 2 edits.
Let's see, you hear something else that's different.
Okay, again, so that wasn't a brilliant edit right there. I'd probably just adjust the sliders, but you get the idea. Wind back here. And yet that one is unbelievably brilliant. And this is so cool, right? So this is really cool, man, to your point. So it edited from, I don't know if you can see that text, from 2 minutes, 23:10, it edited to a minute before. So it went back to the verse before and edited coming out of the solo into that, all right? So yeah, it's totally flexible. And like I said, it doesn't know though, but I wanted it to re-edit verse 3, not verse 2. It doesn't know that. So that's where if you favor shorter edits, shorter segments based on 8, 16, 24 beat patterns, you can have it do those edits, separate them into clips, and then you can start, recomposing manually. But it is really, it's really quite something. All right. Cool. Okay, nice. All right. So match volume and loudness. All right. So as I mentioned, inside of Essential Sound, we have, for all audio types, whether it's ambience, sound effects, dialogue, or music, you have this loudness auto match function. And you have this in Premiere as well. Now, what's awesome about this is that this will take all of your audio and it'll automatically set the loudness reference level to a broadcast standard, which in this case for Premiere is -23 LUFS. And we're using the LUFS scale, which stands for loudness units relative to full scale. When you're talking about audio loudness, broadcast standards, broadcast compliance, everything is measured in LUFS now. It's not measured in dBFS. Now, Audition will provide to you the measurements in both and among other different measurement types. But when we're talking loudness, we're talking LUFS or sometimes LKFS, although now with the latest standard, K-weighted loudness and standard LUFS are actually now are effectively the same. In any case, the difference is in Audition, you have way more flexibility in what you actually match your loudness to. And you're going to do that in a couple of different ways. And I'm going to get back to Essential Sound. The first thing I want to show you here, though, is the Match Loudness panel. Now, actually, before I do that, let me go back over to Premiere, and I'm going to open up another project here. It's something that people in the chat were alluding to and commenting on. Something's happening. This is the fake movie trailer that I did with my colleague Michael Shez a couple years ago. And the reason I pull this one up is that, as you can see here, and some of this is being blocked by my camera, I see, but this is a fairly legit, hearty session. We've got 23 tracks of audio, and then I've got 4 audio buses. So lots of sound design, ambience, dialogue, and music all contained in this edit. All right. So let's go ahead and send this over. And in fact, I'm going to close Fuzzy. We don't need both of these. Let me just close Fuzzy here. Not going to save any changes. Back to Premiere. Let's go ahead and edit sequence. Entire thing. I call it YTL for YouTube Live. OK. All right. Morgan Korn. Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, the speed of processing is amazing. It's quite something. And it only needs that first time to analyze, and then it'll just keep dynamically changing based on the duration that you adjust. Okay? So now we have all of our audio here in Audition. And again, when we're talking about matching loudness, we're going to go into our Match Loudness panel. I'm going to dock this over here. Where part of the challenge of mixing, if you're doing, again, a full production where you have sound design, you have sound effects, you have Foley, you have dialogue, some of it live on location, some of it replaced. You have music, and then you have, like slow acoustic blues, but then you have like hard rock for the chase scene, and then you've got like, dinner music. The loudness levels of all of these things will likely vary. And so when you're in the mixing stage, at first it's like, okay, why nothing even has the same starting point. So you can use Match Loudness in Audition to take all of your audio, multiple types, multiple flavors, and make them all the same sort of starting point. Now again, you can do this in Premiere with Essential Sound, but you only have one level, which is -23 LUFS. That's a standard for EBU. That's what they set it to. It's pretty standard for dialogue and such. But you don't have any other options there. But in Audition, you do. So in the Match Loudness panel, I'm going to start by taking, let's say, for instance, all of our sound design, and we've got lots of it. So I'm going to take, there's a bunch of files here. I'm going to take the sound design and the Foley. So Storm and Steps, and we won't do the Screams. We'll do Lightning, and then there's like these Ascend files and Ambience. And I'm going to drag all of these into the Match Loudness panel. And what this will do, if I expand this out, actually, you know what? Here, let me put this down here for a second, just so that you can see all the details. With this button here selected, computing average loudness, volume perceived, etc., this now gives you all of the attributes of your files. So first and foremost, you can see just here, based on, in this case, the US Broadcast Loudness Standard, the ITU standard, there's about a 10 dB difference between these files, okay? And then you have the traditional RMS, standing for root mean squared loudness figures. Okay, these are your loudness averages based on the dBFS, decibels relative to full scale measurement scale. Peak in dB. Then you have true peak. True peak is directly related to the measurement in loudness units. So this is often sometimes referred to as dBTP, decibels relative to true peak based on loudness units, okay? Then you have, these are what we also sometimes refer to as our legacy loudness values, also measured in RMS, okay, dB. So you've got all of this detail, all of this nerd data. How do I kind of make all of these the same? Well, here's where this gets really cool. So as mentioned, if you want to say conform everything before you even start to a particular loudness standard, you'll see that you have this match to drop-down menu where you have ITU loudness. These are just presets, by the way. ATSC A85, EBU R128, okay? Now, with ITU, we also allow you to modify this target loudness. So, for instance, if we were working with dialogue and you were doing a podcast, I might say, okay, let's make all of our dialogue minus 16 LUFS, or LUFS, as I've heard many people say. This is kind of a standard, all right? So you can do that. And if we set the target to minus 16, it will do just that. It'll set everything automatically to that loudness value. Now, if in doing so, perhaps it has to attenuate some audio. Now, this audio is all pretty quiet. But if it had to bring audio down because it was too loud to conform to minus 16, it also has the option here to, by default, use true peak limiting, right? So it's actually going to use a limiter to bring everything into whatever that loudness range is, loudness level is, so that it's compliant against that measured loudness. Super cool. I mean, so much flexibility. But here's where this gets really awesome. So let's say, again, in terms of this sound design, that we've got lots of different files here, and I want everything to be the same loudness as this particular lightning file here. So if I go into our waveform view, go into the editor, here's the lightning. So this is matched out at minus 22. So I want everything to be as loud as this. Well, you'll notice in the drop-down that you not only have broadcast standards, and you have, again, true peak, loudness, perceived, peak amplitude. I probably never use that one. But you have this one here, total RMS, match to file. So let's say you have a music file, and you want all of your music to be the same loudness as, you know, this Kanye track, or this Alice Cooper track, or this whatever. You can say reference this file. Now you see, it's funny, it brought up my ADR file. So like dialogue, I recorded my ADR. I want all of the on-location dialogue to have the same loudness as my ADR file. Or in the case of this, I want everything to be the same loudness as this lightning extracted file. Use limiting if necessary. I'm going to click run on this. And when I click run, now what you will see, again, based on the RMS values. Now, again, RMS is an average here, so it might be within a couple of fractional bits of a decibel, but you can now see that the total RMS for all of these files is effectively the same. This one was particularly quiet, so it's even a bit softer, all right? But all the same, in a single pass, okay, based on that reference. What if we instead say, you know what? I realize I want everything to be as loud as this ambience file. All right, so let's undo the changes that we made there. Now let's extract everything. Let's run this on ambience. Okay, and now the total RMS there is minus 33.3. Okay, based on the RMS level of the ambience track. So this is one of the coolest things that this does, is that you can reference a specific file. It can be something that's outside of anything you even recorded, right? Again, in terms of music, in terms of dialogue, and match the loudness. And if you have the session like this, again, now when you're back in your multitrack editor, all of these files have been automatically affected, right? Now, if you wanted to do this in advance of working in Premiere, this is something that I would typically recommend. You'll notice that these all have the asterisks next to them telling you that it's now modified those files. You could go up to File, Save All, and it will save all of those changes. Now, because we sent this over from Premiere, these are copies anyway, right? So we're just saving back the changes to the copies. It's just the idea that you can do that really quickly. And again, you can also continue to finish the whole session right from here. You don't actually have to send it back to Premiere. Traditionally, we would export back to Premiere Pro, but as you'll see under the File menu, you can actually export directly to the media encoder right from Audition, finish your audio, finish your content, and then, via media encoder, because we have destination publishing, directly published to YouTube, to Facebook, to Vimeo, to Behance, to wherever it is that you want to go. It never has to go back to Premiere unless you want it to. Now, if you do want it to, in that case, again, export to Adobe Premiere Pro. Then you have the option to send everything as a stem. Now it all came over as stems, so it'll send stems back, or you could do a compiled mixdown, mono, stereo, or in this case, this happens to be a 5.1 session. It'll create an interleaved 5.1 file. Now what's cool about this is if you send over an interleaved mix, one, it's going to keep all the original stems regardless in that Premiere Pro session. So all those originals are still there. Two, this interleaved mixdown, whether it's mono, stereo, or 5.1, has edit original embedded metadata inside of it. So if you are listening to that file in Premiere and you go, oh, you know what, I need to tweak that lightning, it's supposed to be in the back left and it's in the back right, you can edit original or edit in Audition. It'll open up Audition, it'll say, hey, do you actually want to edit this 5.1 file or the stereo file, or do you want to open the session that created that file? And if you choose session, it will then open up all of this again. So you have access to all the raw clips with the changes that you made so that you can rechange, reconfigure, and then re-export an interleaved mix. So flexible. Again, it's like After Effects of audio. There's just like so many ways to do things. Gets a little confusing, to be honest, at times. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you here is creating favorites, all right? So as I mentioned, perhaps in particular with dialogue, maybe there's a series of things that you do to all of your dialogue files. I certainly do. A lot of times it's something like, I want to first compress everything or EQ everything and then compress it and then normalize, or some flavor of that, whatever it happens to be. So let me show you how easy it is to create a favorite and then batch process multiple files simultaneously. So I'm going to open up the batch process panel. So can you see that there? You can. Okay. So we're going to go up to the favorites menu here and we're going to choose Start Recording Favorite. Now I'm just going to use some of the presets that I have in the effects. These could be your own presets. You can also set parameters manually. I'm just doing this for the sake of speeding it up, make it faster to show you on stream. But check this out. So here I have my original ADR. Now I'm recording a favorite. This is just telling me what it's doing. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to apply a little bit of EQ. So I'm going to come up to Filter and EQ, Parametric Equalizer, okay? And I chose this one yesterday. Maybe I want all of my dialogue to sound like old-time radio, or all of my audio to sound like old-time radio, okay? So here it is. I can go ahead and apply that, all right? And then the next step is I want to apply some compression. So I'll go into our tube model compressor, and let's use the radio leveler on this, all right? And apply that. You can see it made the audio a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to do amplitude and compression, and I want to normalize everything. And for dialogue, typically I'll normalize all of my dialogue files to -6 after they've been compressed. So do that. It does just that. Go back to the favorites menu and choose Stop Recording Favorite. And we'll call this EQ Comp Norm. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to undo those three processes, bringing us back to the original state of the file. So now what I can do is I can take anything in here, right? So again, this was on dialogue, so I could use the original dialogue files, right? So here's the extracted dialogue from Fuzzy. I could take my ambience files, some of these Ascend audio files, because ultimately I want to make all of this dialogue have that old-timey radio sound. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just the idea that I'm using this batch process. I'm going to drag all these into batch process. Now, again, if I'm trying to convert a bunch of things, you can do the conversions in Media Encoders. If you've got a bunch of WAV files and you want to convert them to MP3, or you've got a bunch of MP3s and you want to convert them to WAV, you can do that in Media Encoder. You just have more options here. And if you take a look, you'll see, like, if we had the export button selected here, right now this is going to convert from 48K 32-bit to 48K 16-bit in a particular file format that I chose, which was MP3 192, okay? But I don't want that. I don't want to convert these files. I just want to process all of them. And I want to process all of them with all of those effects that I just showed you. Well, you'll see inside of batch process, you have a favorites dropdown. And what we're looking for is this one that we built right here, EQ Comp Norm. So I'm going to choose that, Again, I'm not exporting. I want to do this. I want to affect all these files live. Let's go ahead and click Run. Check this out. Done. Talk about speed of processing. This is one of those things that I don't even understand how we're able to do this so quickly. But now you can see it's done. And when I play this back, play music, I write stories, tell stories, right? It has just that slightly more old-timey radio EQ sound, right? Very limited frequency response there, right? And this is where also I like to pull up things like our frequency analysis panel, because this is going to show you exactly what's happened. So you see here how we have this bump around 1K. A lot of mid-range. The high end is rolled off, the low end is rolled off. If I were to undo the changes made to this, right, here's the original. Right? Look at the EQ curve. We've got so much more detail across all frequencies up to and around 20K. But after it ran the batch process, right, the parametric EQ, which made it very old-time radio, then the compressor, then the normalize, right? There you go. And it did it to all of those files literally in like 2 seconds. Now, of course, based on duration of files, it may take longer. It just depends on, you know, how long everything is. But it's amazingly fast, and it's fractions of a fraction of real time when batch processing. That in conjunction with real-time frequency analysis and, as I like to point out, real-time phase analysis. If you're working with stereo audio, this is so essential. A lot of sound design libraries you'll often find, especially when people have created sound design libraries, so they're kind of faking stereo and doing things to make it sound sort of phasey and very wide. Well, you might actually incur files where things are out of phase. So like this particular lightning, we're wonderfully in phase here. I'm trying to remember, there was a track yesterday. I don't remember which. Maybe it was the ambience. Is it ambience? Yeah, there you go. So again, I didn't create this, but they're using some weird stereo effect. I can hear it in cans where it sounds like your head's being kind of pulled apart. But you see how on the graph here that this is, when the orb goes red and it's focused toward inverse, this content is out of phase. So if I were to sum this into mono, which by the way, you should always check for mono compatibility, also much easier to do inside of Audition's mixer, because you have these sum to mono functions on every track. You can see that right there, sum to mono. So it's really easy to hear and check for mono compatibility. But more importantly, if it were sum to mono, everything that's in the center of this stereo image would disappear. So you would effectively lose that sound design when it's played back. How would you know why that's happening? Real-time phase analysis, right? The beginning of the file looks to be okay. Slightly out of phase toward the end there. But that's okay. That's for effect. Sometimes that's what you want. But this whole bit right here, yeah, you'd probably lose all of that when that's summed to mono, all right? Or at least a good portion of it. So again, just having these analysis tools will allow you to not only visually see what's happening, visually understand what's happening in terms of real-time frequency, but also understand what's happening in terms of the stereo sound field, particularly where sound design and Foley are concerned. You know, people get very heavy-handed with like stereo processing, stereo widening effects these days. I hear it a lot on in a lot of movies, and that's fine because most people are accustomed to watching things certainly in stereo, of course in theaters, whatnot, 5.1, blah blah blah. But you know, you never know where these things are going to be played or listened to, and you should always just be aware that that's what's happening. You know, better to be safe than sorry, as they say. So just some really cool analysis tools, real time, to show you what's happening. So my friends, God, we went about 14 minutes over. Sorry for that. Covered a lot of stuff today, though. We started with edit in Audition, segued into edit sequence. Went to automatic speech alignment to be used with ADR, Adobe Audition Remix to dynamically recompose as opposed to stretching your audio to fit any duration, shorter or longer. Match volume and loudness processing with the match volume panel, including the ability to match volume and loudness to a specific reference file, as well as batch processing and favorites creation, which are basically like making macros in Photoshop, right? You've got a series of processes that you do to every photo that you take. You build a macro, you assign it to a keyboard shortcut. By the way, all of your favorites can also be assigned to keyboard shortcuts too. So every time I bring in files and I want to apply that EQ, compression, normalize function, I can do that in a batch automatically, sends it over to Premiere, and we're done. All right. So just going to quickly check the chat here. Wild Camping Whales, After Effects of Audio. Yes. Coined by Angie Taylor circa 2002, I think. 2002, 2001. All right. All right. Thank you, Adventure Darren. All right. Just checking here. Let's see. All right. Yeah, the favorite thingy is so cool. Yeah, it's great. It's really great. And by the way, you don't have to apply those in a batch. That's just if you have a series of processes that you want to make a favorite. It can even be a single process. You know, I always want to, like if I quickly want to normalize things to a specific level, and you'll see in our favorites menu, we have like normalize to -3, normalize to 0.01. You can make a favorite for anything, for any effect function, and assign it to a keyboard shortcut, which is just really nice. Okay. Yep, Morgan, you got it. So cool. Okay, Christian Maras, you've got a bit of an off-topic question. Okay. Do my eyeglasses filter blue light? No, they don't. These are clear. And why would I want to filter it? I'm surrounded by blue and magenta lights. Took me months to get this lighting just right, you know. All right. Adventure Dan, can't wait to rewatch. Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, again, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. The replay will, of course, be available right here on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel. And hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Have a good one. Take care. And thanks again, Evil Cerise, for modding the chat. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.